Hey there, I'm Sarah Zarella, a portrait and wedding photographer and your host for Wedding Secrets Unveiled. This is a podcast where we cut through the complexity of wedding planning, leaving you with everything you need to know directly from the industry experts. If you want to simplify your wedding planning while having fun, of course, you came to the right place. Join me while I guide you through your planning, starting from your engagement to your big day when you say, I do. After photographing for over 20 years, I am sharing with you tips and tricks to cut through the excess noise. Because I believe from the moment you said yes, your planning experience should be a magical time in your life. Here you'll find episodes that are fun, stress-free, and straight to the point with a fresh, honest take on the reality of what you really need to know about planning your perfect day. Let's dive in. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, Sarah Zarella, and today's guest is Elisabeth Russell, who is the owner of Peachy Petals. Have you thought about what you want to do with your bouquet after your wedding, or even the boutonniere? If you are thinking about floral preservation, then today's episode is for you. We're going to talk about what you should consider when choosing the best floral preservation artist. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about the process, what flowers really preserve really well, and the best possible options for you when you are considering who to choose for your floral preservation. We are also offering today a code for $20 off. When you go to Elisabeth's website and you type in secrets at checkout, you will receive $20 off all of our services. So if today you're thinking about what to do with your bouquet, this is the episode for you, and you definitely want to listen to it ahead of time because there is a time limit of when you can preserve your bouquet. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, and you're in for a treat today. Just a quick reminder for everybody, we are new now on YouTube. So if you have been a long-time listener, you can now watch us on YouTube. So check it out at the Sarah Zarella YouTube page. With that said, though, for our guest Elisabeth, hello.
Hello, so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, who you serve, and what you do in your business?
Of course. So, my name is Elizabeth, and I own Peachy Petals, which is a flower preservation company. Basically, we receive bouquets from weddings and memorials all across the country, and we press them and then frame them so that they can be displayed as works of art in your home forever after your wedding day.
Awesome. So, where are you located?
So we're actually based out of Atlanta, Georgia, but the great part about flower preservation is that usually you can pick an artist that's kind of anywhere as long as they're within the United States because you can ship your flowers after your wedding to them. So we probably get about half of our clients are local and about half ship their flowers to us.
Perfect. And that's what I really wanted the listeners to know is that you can service people nationwide. So, that's
Yes,
great.
I feel like it's such a scary thing when you first think about it because you're like, shipping flowers doesn't seem like something that would be easy, but we actually have a shipping kit. So clients that might not be based in Georgia can buy our shipping kit before their event, and it arrives at their door already with a return label on it. So all they have to do is follow the instructions. They have all the supplies they need and they mail it back to us. And every week we get flowers in beautiful shapes. So it definitely is intimidating at first, but after doing it for, years, we've realized that it's not as scary as people might think to ship your flowers.
And it's really nice too that you actually have already thought about this and you have a shipping instructions and box and everything for everybody. So,
Well,
yeah.
there are so many people because it's one of those things where, like, after your wedding, all you want to do is like go on your honeymoon. So people will often like leave their bouquet with their mom or with their mother-in-law or their bridesmaids, and sometimes they wouldn't ship it perfectly. And so we were like, okay, let's just give them everything they need and all the instructions, so there's no way for them to mess it up. And it makes it like a very stress-free process. So if you are doing it before you leave for your honeymoon, it's not very panic inducing. It's much more of a calming experience since you have everything that you need.
And if you are leaving for honeymoon and you want to get that bouquet out, you can just give the kit in the box and all the instructions to the person that's in charge of shipping it out.
Exactly, exactly.
Before we get into our today's episode, I'm just curious, how did you get involved with this niche that you have going
Yes,
on?
so it is definitely not something I ever thought I'd do. I went to, Georgia Tech and got my degree in environmental engineering,
That is
so
so
I
not, it's so
it's
not what you
so
do.
not flower preservation, literally the polar opposite, but, life throws curveballs your way. I, got married in 2023 and was looking for somebody to preserve my flowers. And I couldn't find somebody that had like the custom options and the design style that I was wanting. So I decided that I was going to preserve my flowers myself. But I wasn't ignorant enough to think it'd be easy because it is very
Mhm.
easy to ruin your flowers if you try to DIY preserve them, which is why I always tell people like stick to the professionals, don't try to do it yourself. So I actually, my wedding photographer, she would bring me extra flowers from the weddings that she shot at, and I practiced on those. So after probably 8, 9 months of botched flowers, I pressed my own wedding flowers. And then it was kind of the season of all my friends getting married. So I did their flowers. Then they had friends that wanted me to do it. And it literally just spiraled until I was like, wait a minute, this could be like a business. So I started doing it on the side while I was still working my full time engineering job. And it just absolutely blew up. And I ended up quitting my job and taking it full time. And now we have a staff of 4. So it has snowballed. It's been like such a wonderful adventure, but I absolutely love it.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode.
Yes.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. What should brides consider when they're choosing a flower preservation artist?
Okay, that is such a great question. These are a lot of things. Like, I feel like there's so many resources on the internet for choosing your venue, like what questions you should ask your venue, and choosing your photographer or other vendors. But flower preservation is such a niche thing that people don't really know the different options. The first thing that I think they should consider is what type of preservation they want. So, at Peachy Petals, we specifically do pressed flowers. So, we press them flat and then we frame them. But there are also people that do like 3D preservation and then they put them in like big resin blocks. Then there's also air dried and then freeze dried. So there's several different methods. And I would say the first step would be to figure out which specific method you want. That way you can narrow down artists from there. Another big one would be your artist location. Like we already talked about how you can ship your flowers, but it will come with a cost to ship your flowers. I would say try to find somebody, if possible, that's like generally regionally the same as you. So, like if you're in California, you might not want to ship your flowers to somebody in New York. You can, it's just going to be a little bit more expensive for the shipping costs. So, thinking about their location is a big one. Another thing, and this is something that brides don't know about, but your flowers are going to change color when they press, right? So a great example is red roses. When we press them, they'll darken to kind of like a purple or like a dark maroon. At Peachy Petals, I love the like color change that happens when we press flowers, but some brides want it to look just like it did on their wedding day. So specific artists will offer color correction. This is basically where like after they take your flowers out of the press or out of the silica gel, they will almost paint them to be the color that they were on your wedding day and then preserve them that way. So figuring out if you want to do color correction and if your artist offers color corrections are two other big things that I would consider. And I feel like those are the three main ones that I think brides should think about when choosing a flower preservation artist.
That's really interesting. It's funny because here we are. This is why we're having a podcast. Is all these different things that you can do, like a flower preservation artist can do that you may not
Mhm.
even know. Like someone may have not even know that you can make your flowers look the color that they are that day, or you can allow it to take nature's course.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's definitely a preference thing. If you go online, a lot of times artists are super open about if they color correct. So we color correct our white flowers because white is super sensitive over time. They actually look really good when they first come out of the press, but after 2 years, they'll be a lot more. I don't want to say brown because they won't go fully brown, but they're not going to be as bright white. So we color correct our white flowers because those are the ones that are the most sensitive. But other ones we kind of allow to just look how they will. And it's very, like, selective, which is why you gotta figure out what each specific artist does, the approach they take.
I'm just curious. I mean, without getting in too technical, like what is the color correction process? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, so, at Peachy Petals, we use, like, a powder, so it's like a pan pastel that we, like, lightly brush on the flower, but some artists use, like, acrylic paint, and some artists will use, like, spray, almost like a spray not a spray paint, but it's like an airbrush type thing, like, when you get your makeup airbrush, it's similar to that, but, like, onto the flowers. So there's a few different methods, but those are the most popular ones that I know of.
I love that. All right. All right. Tell me a little bit about what brides can do to ensure that they end up with the best preserved frame possible.
Oh, that's such a good one. I feel like the first thing is to let your florist know. florists like probably know more about flower preservation than you do. And the big thing is to make sure that they include a lot of variety in your bouquet. So I think single variety bouquets are beautiful and we preserve them all the time. Like all calla lilies are all white roses. But if you're wanting to have like a really dynamic and kind of, I don't know, frame that has a lot of depth, you're going to want a lot of different kind of flowers, different sizes, and then different varieties of greenery. So I feel like one of the big things is to make sure that when you're talking to your florist, you emphasize to them that you want a bouquet that has like a lot of variety, a lot of different size and color of flowers. And a lot of times, if you tell them, oh, it's because I'm getting my flowers preserved, they'll totally understand where you're coming from and why you want it that way. And then the other big one is keeping your flowers in water on your wedding day. You would be shocked how many brides lay their flowers down like on the sweetheart table during all of dinner. And if your bouquet is out of water for 6 hours, it's gonna like seriously do a number on it. So we always tell people to assign one of your bridesmaids to flower duty, and their job is to make sure that the flower is in water when it's not actively being held and that it gets to the place it needs to go at the end of the night. Because we've had brides before where their bouquet has just gone missing. So assigning someone flower duty is a great way to make sure that your flowers are in good shape for preservation.
Actually, that leads me to another random question for you is that like is when is it too late?
Yes. Okay. So this totally depends on the artist. We say that you've got to have your flowers to us within 5 days after your event. So if you have a wedding on a Saturday, by Wednesday and Thursday, that's really when we need your flowers. But some other artists that do heavier color correction, in their case, it doesn't really matter if the flowers have started to brown because they're just going to paint over them afterwards anyway. So some people say up to 10 days after your wedding. But my biggest piece of advice is if this is something that you want, you should definitely book in advance because we have brides reach out to us on Monday and Tuesday after their weddings and then it's too late because we're either fully booked because we can only take a certain number a week or they're not going to be able to get their flowers to us still in good shape. So really as soon as possible, getting your flowers to your preservation artist is good, and definitely booking in advance is a big part of that as well.
Perfect. All right, but what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, Elizabeth, and then when we get back, we're going to kind of dive in to some more tips and tricks about what you do.
Perfect.
I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. And don't forget, you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate if you left a fabulous review on Apple Podcast. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support. And now, let's get back to the episode. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. So before the break, I was talking with Elisabeth a little bit about what brides should consider when choosing a preservation artist, and also too, how brides can ensure that they find the best artist for them. However, during the break, Elizabeth and I were talking a little bit, and we're going to offer you a really great promotional code for all of our listeners. So
Hmm.
if you are listening to this episode and you would like to get a nice savings from Elizabeth, mention the word secrets. So for Wedding Secrets Unveiled, so just mention where can they tell us a little bit about where they could put this code in or when it's,
Yes.
yes.
When you go to check out, there'll be a place to put a discount code in. You can put secrets in and it'll get you $25 off.
Check that out just for listening. Look at that. All right. With that said, let's get right back into so many questions I was thinking I wanted to ask you. Um, like on the technical side, right? Like just a little bit about what actually goes into preservation work. I mean, I know you explained to us a little bit about the color correction, but what about the actual preserving the bouquet? You know?
Yeah. So we use a few different methods depending on the flowers. The short of it is that we have a press where we have two pieces of wood and screws, and basically we're slowly squishing the moisture out of your flowers. But depending on what kind of flower you have and how thick it is, we might use different methods. So specific flowers that have really dense petals, for example, is a dahlia. We can't actually press dahlias whole because they'll end up being wrinkly and probably molding. So we actually deconstruct dahlias and we press them petal by petal. We dry them in individual petals, and then after they come out of the press, we glue them back together. So flowers that are really thick, like dahlias or peonies, we deconstruct. And then there are other flowers that if they're, especially if they're like tropical, so like ginger or Anthurium, we actually use the microwave to do
Oh.
those. So I know you have to be careful because it's very easy to burn flowers in the microwave and it smells horrendous. So if you're going to experiment with microwaving flowers, just be prepared for like your whole kitchen to reek.
Well,
But
I mean, I would
after a lot
assume so because, like, even the water reeks from flowers,
No, I
right?
know.
You know?
So we do that to get kind of the initial moisture out. But then after that, it's really just a game of making sure they don't mold. So for the first like 2 weeks that we have your flowers, we basically babysit them and we change the paper out on them. So we spend one day squishing them. Then we open the press back up. We check on every single page of petals, every single flower, and we refresh the paper because if it stays too wet, then it'll mold and then you're not able to use it in your final piece. But it takes 6 to 8 weeks for the flowers to actually dry. So it's a super long process where we're kind of like checking on them. And then after that, it's just gluing all the flowers back together that need to be glued back together and then laying them out into a design, which we always send to our clients to make sure that they like it and they can make any changes they want before we finalize their frame.
I'm assuming, though, there has to be like I know before the break, we talked a little bit about that window, but I think based on what you're trying to tell me, the process being so long and there's so many steps, like there has to be a window when you have to get these to you, right? Before
Yeah.
all of, for example, you just talked about the microwave, like you're doing certain things to get the moisture out, but what if it naturally happens? So when do you really want these flowers to you?
I always tell people like pretty much as soon as possible, but our like policy is within 5 days of your event. But yeah, once your flowers have started to dry on their own, like some people will hang their flowers upside down, but once any part of the petal has started to dry, they're not really able to be pressed anymore at that point. So when that happens, we always tell people like you can air dry your flowers and then put them in a shadow box, which is always an option. But it's past the point of no return once it started to
Mm.
dry on its own for pressing.
So point is book you in advance and start working with you in
Yes, I
advance.
think people don't realize it's so sad because there's so many wonderful free resources online for wedding planning that have checklists. It's like
Hmm.
book your venue, get your wedding dress, and they even have things like do your seating chart, like down to the details of like make your bridesmaids boxes, you know what I mean? But flower preservation is not one that is commonly on those lists, and it really should be added because every single week I turn brides away, especially during the busy
Oh.
season, which is like, spring and fall like October last year, I mean, I had to have turned away upwards of like 100 brides because they
Oh.
reached out to me after their wedding, or they might have even reached out to me before their wedding, like 2, 3 weeks before their wedding, but we were already booked because we can only take a certain number. So if there's an artist you really want to work with, hopefully it's Peachy Petals, but whoever it is, get on their books early because that way you won't have to be stressed about it after your wedding.
And use that discount code SECRETS.
Exactly.
All right, so talk to me about pricing though, because
Yeah.
it sounds like this is a process.
It's a process. It is a process. It's painstaking. And I feel like part of what you're paying for too, though, is like the expertise of a professional flower preservation artist because there are so many flowers that I've ruined when I was learning how to do this. And over time, I've gotten it to where they don't just preserve well, they preserve like really well. Like we know how to get white roses like perfect. You know what I mean? So if you don't want to risk it with something as sentimental as your wedding bouquet, you shouldn't. But our frames start at our lowest frame is an 8 by 10. So that would be kind of like a small memento. Usually can fit 3 to 4 flowers, and that's our smallest size. That's 250. And then we go all the way up to an 18 by 24. And that one is 540. So, and in between, we have an 11 by 14 and a 16 by 20. So, if you are having your standard bridal bouquet, you're not getting anything crazy big, it's just your normal size. We usually tell people 16 by 20 is a safe bet. Most bridal bouquets will fit a 16 by 20, and it's a nice size frame where it can go in your house and it's not too big, but it's also not too small. So, it can still capture the essence of your flowers. Um, but the 18 by 24 is our big kahuna. And people, if you really want to make sure you get every single flower in your bouquet to show up, then the 18 by 24 is definitely the way to go.
So, how can people decide a little bit about like what size is great for them?
Yeah, so on our website, we actually have a size guide where it shows different pictures of various size bouquets and like what frame we would suggest. It really depends on how much of your bouquet you want captured. If you want like the whole entire thing saved, go for our 18 by 24. But people can also always upgrade after their wedding. So a lot of people will say, I'm not really sure what size I want. I'm going to go for the 11 by 14 for now. But if you get my flowers and it's big enough for more, then let me know and I want to upgrade. So that's also an option too, is people will buy like our 11 by 14 frame and then they'll say, if we have enough flowers, we definitely want to upgrade it, and they can decide right after the wedding if they want to upgrade to a larger size.
And I'm assuming there has to be some type of gift card that you offer, especially if this is something that people are preserving forever. I mean, what better gift to give to somebody,
Oh my
right?
gosh, it is the best wedding gift. Listen, people are always looking for unique gifts because every wedding you go to, you can get someone a crate and barrel bowl or a set of forks and knives. But flower preservation is like so unique and thoughtful. We actually have had so many people ask us about that we now have like a whole page on our website that walks you through exactly how to add a Peachy Petals gift card to your registry for all the main registries. So like Zola, the Knot, My Registry, whatever the other ones are. But you can actually add one of our gift cards to your registry with like photos of our work. That way, when people are looking at your registry, they can go like check out our business, make sure we're legit, and then purchase a gift card. And that has definitely been super popular, especially because wedding planning is so expensive. And I know there's a lot of costs that go into it. To put this on your wedding registry and have someone get it for you as a gift is like the perfect option if you want to have your flowers preserved but aren't necessarily sure about paying for it yourself. And that's definitely been popular amongst our clients.
And, what's kinda cute is if you go on your website, you can see that you do other things too. You have, like, little mini blooms that you can do for other flower
Yes.
occasions and boutonnieres too for those
Uh-huh.
guys.
Listen, the boutonnieres deserve a frame too. I always tell people that because they're so cute. But we actually have a lot of people who we have we don't do resin blocks. Like there are some companies that do really large blocks of resin, but we do have resin add-ons. So we have like small ring dishes and keychains. But a lot of people will get ornaments is another one. They'll get a little add-on frame for like their mom because moms are so invested in wedding planning or even sisters. And you can get a small frame to go along with your larger frame. And it is like the perfect Mother's Day gift, Christmas gift to just stow away until the next holiday and
I
gift to
love
them. So you're
that.
very popular.
Alright, well, a couple questions before a wrap-up question. Tell me what flowers preserve the best.
Oh my gosh, that is such a good question. And it's hard because there are so many that I love. But off the top of my head, I've got to say I love delphinium, which is very popular in wedding bouquets. It's kind of that blue tall one. I love the color that it brings and it always preserves so well. It literally never fails me. It's a lot of work on the front end actually pressing it, but it's always worth it. So delphinium is a big one. Coral charm peonies are also a favorite of mine,
Mm,
especially when they're still in their hot pink phase. Peonies are really interesting flowers because if you ever had them in a vase in your house, over the course of the days you have them, they actually drain of their color. So they like start as hot pink and they go towards like a pale pink. And no matter what phase we get them in, they're still beautiful. But I particularly love like a hot pink coral charm peony because they pop so well in frames. And then the other one I love is butterfly ranunculus.
oh.
These are like the little bouncy ranunculuses that kind of come out of bouquets, and they always add so much like movement. And their stems are always like a little squiggly. So I love to include them in a piece because they add a lot of like movement and dimension that wouldn't be
Mm.
there otherwise.
So talk to me, though, now about ones that don't preserve well.
Uh, that's a much easier question because I have mortal enemies in the flower world. And the number one is Lysianthus, which a lot of people don't even know what that is, but let me tell you what, it is in 90% of wedding bouquets. It is a white, like filler flower that's pretty small, almost like the same size as a spray rose. And no matter what you do, it will turn yellow. And it's not a cute yellow either.
Mm,
It's like a ugly yellow. So I do not like Lysianthus at all. Now, thankfully, usually Lysianthus are not like a I don't wanna say they're not an important part of a bouquet because they're a filler flower, though, you don't really notice if they're not in your final piece. So, we always press them because we wanna have everything to work with, but we never really end up including them in final pieces just because they don't look as pretty as the other flowers, and I don't feel like they're necessary for the composition of the piece, like, they're not really adding that much. So that one, and then the other one that I really don't like is mums.
Oh,
Mums, oh my gosh, they are the worst. They fall apart, they turn brown, so they are not my friend. I've gotten it now where those are one of the ones we actually use an iron on mums, like we iron them with an iron, and that helps, but we still have to change paper on them for like twice as long as regular flowers. And even with all that work, they never end up looking that good. So those two are my top two flowers that I really don't like. It's not that we won't press them because we press everything, but we're not enthusiastic about it.
fair. You're allowed to not be enthusiastic about
Yeah.
everything. All right. So, for a wrap up question, what are some key points that couples should be asking preservation companies when they're inquiring with them to make sure that they are working with a professional company?
Oh my gosh, such a good question. So there's flower preservation has definitely grown in popularity over the last several years, which has been really fun because there's been a lot of people that are getting into it. But one of the biggest things I would say you should do is look at their portfolio. Artist portfolios will speak for themselves. If there's a website and you can maybe find 4 or 5 frames that they've done that look good, but not much more than that, chances are they haven't really done that many frames, which means they might not really know like what they're doing. So make sure you find someone that has a robust gallery. On our website, you can go to our gallery page, and I literally upload every single frame we've ever done. And so it's a big long scroll. You can scroll through. You can also ask them how long they've been doing it, or maybe how they got into it. But honestly, I feel like a gallery is the biggest thing that'll really speak for itself. If they have a lot of work that they've done and you absolutely love how all of it looks, then you don't really have much to be worried about. But if you can't find a lot of examples, then that might be a red flag.
Fair. And also, too, for our listeners, I know that you wrote 5 tips of making sure your wedding flowers are preserved beautifully on your blog. So I'll have that on our episode show notes too for
Yes,
you.
that's a great place to start to make sure that your flowers look beautiful when they're pressed or put in resin or whatever they decide to do.
Okay, so before we end our show, I need a wedding hot take from you.
Oh,
Put you on a spot.
oh my gosh, wedding hot take. Wow.
Hmm.
So many of my friends have gotten married lately.
Anything. It
That
doesn't have to be about your industry. Just anything. A wedding hot take.
This is a random hot take. I don't know why I don't like them, but I don't like watercolor monograms.
Fair.
Which is so random, but I don't like them, and I don't know why. No offense to anybody who's listening that has a
Fair.
watercolor monogram. I'm sure it's beautiful, but off the top of my head, the first thing that I thought of was like, I'm not a fan of it. Well, I think for me, what it does it is when you have a watercolor monogram, but then you've got typeface next to it, and I'm like, it doesn't vibe. If it's all watercolor, like if you got an invite and you've watercolored the words on the invitation with the monogram, then it's a vibe and it works. But I feel like mixing the two mediums throws me off as an artist. That's my
Fair.
one take.
Fair. That's your artist brain working right there.
There you go, yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for joining me on this week's Wedding Secrets Unveiled episode. You helped our listeners become one step closer to a stress-free journey planning. Can you tell everybody where they could find you?
Yes, of course. So we are at peachy.petals.co on Instagram and TikTok. And then our website is peachypetalsco.com. So with one Google, you can probably find us, and we would love to preserve your flowers.
And what I'll do for our listeners is we will have Elizabeth's information on our episode show notes, which you can find on our website page, which is sarahzarella.com/podcast. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day, Sarah.
Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening.